This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Welcome to the next edition of the Away End. I am joined this evening by Ollie from the Preston podcast, The Butter Pie, which it intrigues me around its name. So I'm going to find out a little bit more about that shortly. But thank you very much for joining ahead of our game on Easter Monday. So first of all, tell us a bit about your podcast, but most importantly, where did that name come from?
First and foremost, thank you for allowing me on, Craig. And my name's Ollie, and I'm the co-host of the Butter Pie podcast. Now, it's probably our number one question when we go on to opposition talks like this. So, the Butter Pie podcast name came out of, there was about 8 of us in a group chat, and we knew we wanted to start a podcast, but we couldn't come up with a name. We thought, what about the Invincibles, this, that, and the other? No, it doesn't really resonate. I know. And then one lad put in, I know, what about we do a butter pie? Because it's something that's so common within Preston, but nowhere else. It just stuck. Pretty much what a butter pie is something you'll only be able to probably buy in Preston and the surrounding areas. You're able to buy it on the concourse when you come to Deepdale. And what it practically is a cholesterol pie. So it's potato, onion, and butter in a filling in a pie, and that's it.
Sounds like heaven.
It's very bland, but so you have to lather it with gravy and brown sauce, but then you're onto a winner. But it's just stuck. We've talked about maybe changing the name around a few times because everyone's like, Why are you named after a food if you're a football podcast? But I think that's something that, grabs the attention. We're the Butter Pie podcast, but we're about Preston North End.
Indeed. I love it. I love that story, and that's one to look out for next time I do come to Preston.
Definitely.
I've been a couple of times up there, so do enjoy the games. The walk, especially from the town centre and the train station, has always been enjoyable. In fact, it's probably, it's one of the only grounds that I've been to on more than one occasion. And both times had changed. My first time was back in the day, as we'll come on to in a bit. And then most recently, when we've had a sellout away end, and it was just a party day for the Birmingham fans. And I just remember getting off the train in the centre of Preston, and the police going, right, you're free to go to most places, but don't go to this pub, don't go to that pub.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up in a sports bar, which was literally opposite the train station. And then...
it'll be the station.
Yeah, and then we ended up in a massive Wetherspoons, literally around the corner, say 5 minutes from the centre before walking up to the ground. So it was, an enjoyable day, and I can't say one that I'll not forget, because we actually ended up losing in pretty much the last couple of minutes of the game, which was good mention, but they're always good. So
it's always nice to walk up to the stadium, but when you've lost and you've got to run for the last train home, which is 25 minutes away, and the walk's half an hour, it's not the best. So it has its pros and cons, but mostly pros.
I never forget, it's one of the only games that I've been to where there never seems to be any trouble or animosity between the fans. But I was walking past mounted police. I was just thinking, this isn't right. You're going down the cobbled street from the town centre to the ground, and on the corner there's 2 police officers. It's like, why? But no, it is good fun. The banter was great when I went before. And coming off the train station and just being greeted by the police and telling us where to go was awesome, and that's the way to every football ground.
Yeah, the police, Peony Police, PC Elliott. He's brilliant. He's brilliant with when we go on an away, and I think like Preston's been voted like one of the best away days due to the way that the fans are treated. Because you go to some grounds and you have a horrible time for the way you treat, and then you end up losing. It's a nightmare scenario. But as you mentioned there before, you had a great time, coming to Preston because of the way you were treated, even if you did end up losing.
Indeed, and I'll always remember going into the town centre afterwards before the train was about to leave and finding, I think it was a Burger King that was open, that we managed to grab some food before we actually got on the train. So it was a long journey coming back, but it was great going, and we're definitely one for doing it again. So you mentioned about the podcast and how long have you been going, and what made you start it up? Was it just literally the love of the club, as most of them are?
It's probably the hatred of the club at the time, actually, because we've been going 2.5 years, and we started it, I think, because we wanted to give a fan's voice out there of the way that we were as a club. I think quite a lot of us, because we're fairly young, myself and Jack, we're the same age, we're still 23, 24, so we're still fairly young, but we still feel like it was at that stage where we couldn't see a process of progression for the club, and we wanted to, get our voices heard, and it did end up leading to, I think we got together with a fan group and quite a few other people where we actually went to speak to the owner and the advisor, Peter Ridsdale, at the training ground about obviously our thoughts and feelings behind it. And ever since then, really, it's been very good. So yeah, it's been nice seeing the progress from speaking terribly about the club to, welcome back to the Butt Pie podcast. Here we are. We had a fantastic time at Deepdale, whereas comparing to 2.5 years ago, probably better language was left back then.
I mean, we as a group have done 13. Well, this is our 13th season now for Tilton Talk, but it's we've been through the highs and the lows, and I think you mentioned there about the involvement of the clubs with yourselves, and we are seeing more of that now across all of the fan base, especially at Birmingham. The recent launch of our official supporters club, which is just in a couple of days it's gone worldwide. We're seeing fans in New Zealand and a supporters group in New Zealand, and then all of a sudden we've got one that's appearing in Nigeria as well, and we're thinking, where's this?
What's going on here?
But it's awesome to be involved, and I think the more the clubs get the fans involved, the better it is for everyone. So interesting that you've gone down that particular route, but are now reaping the positives. So we'll come on to a little bit about your season and where you thought you'd be to where you are now. But if I look back over the past 5 games, we've seen 2 losses, 2 draws, and a win. So just a 1 win for Birmingham across that period. And our last game was actually a 2-1 loss up at Preston back in, I think it was September. So it's a bit of a mixed patch, and we're coming into our first home game under another manager. So the return of Gary Rowett, which has come due to unforeseen and I suppose for most upsetting scenario with Tony Mowbray being taken ill. So get well soon, Tony, and Mark Venus as well. Gary Rowett joining us with Paul Robinson in his backroom staff. It's come at the right time, and looking forward to his welcome back on Monday. But as you started the season, how did you feel things would go for you, and did you predict you'd be in the position that you're in now? How do you think the season's gone, and where do you think you'll end?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a season. I say this every season for North End. we started off fantastically at the start of the season. And I was like, you know, if we keep this going, where are we going to end up? And I felt to that it was the fact that we had a couple of injuries, so it kind of forced Ryan Lowe to play kind of one way, so he didn't really have much choice. But the way that we were playing was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then obviously more players started to come back, and it kind of felt like he was trying to fit, you know, his best players on the pitch, even if it didn't work as much. He's trying to fit, you know, square pegs in round holes. So we took a bit of a dive, and it got to a stage where we had like, what was it, 5 wins in 23 games, which is abysmal form and unacceptable. And it got to the stage where 99% of the fans wanted him out, and a club statement of coming out and saying, you know, we're going to give him time. And ever since then, he's turned it right round for us. So it's kind of been off on a high, down on a low, and it's slowly starting to pick up again. You know, if you asked me this question about just around Christmas, I'd have said we'd have been battling around the relegation battle. But now the form that we have had, you know, I can see us pushing probably not towards playoffs, but for a top half finish, which, you know, going back to your question at the start, where would I have expected North End to be in our nice homely place in the Championship, in between 8th and 14th, somewhere thereabouts. We're not got to worry about going down, but, you know, we're one or two, you know, top quality players to be able to carry you over the line. But I could say that about 10 teams in the Championship where you can get into the playoffs. If you have 1 or 2 more players that can give you that final push, it is what it is. So yeah, I North End are where I expect them to be. I'm just waiting for the final bit of hope to be sucked out of the club when we end up throwing it in April and have nothing to worry about for the last 6 games.
We're in the opposite position because obviously we started the season really well. Went on to make a strange decision with the loss of John Eustace and Wayne Rooney, which let's not go there. And then we get the boost of Tony Mowbray, seems to be picking things up. Then unfortunately losing to the illness, bit of a downward trend again, and then we find ourselves in the position where we have been for the past 4 or 5 seasons, which is fighting relegation, which is scary, really. But we continue to fight on, and hopefully we'll see this bounce that most teams do with a new manager. But it's always a good game between Birmingham and Preston. You know, I've mentioned about the away games. The home games are always good, and there's always I guess a sense of both teams can beat each other. I don't think there's ever been a time where we can say, actually, there's one team that stands out here, and you know, we're going to be absolutely superb. It never materialises, and it's an interesting one because we're both very, very similar in terms of stature, in terms of the way the clubs have formed, and really our background. And it's nice to go into a game and not be able to predict it in a way.
Yeah, it's always close games as well. I think the last time that it wasn't really a close game was, I think it was the 3-0 at St Andrews, where, what was it, Kielebeld is his name, where he shot for about 50 yards and it just went through Rudd's legs when he went to pick it up. Yeah. That's the only game that I can really think of that's been, you know, a clear battering by one side. I've never really thought, you know what, we're going to go into this game, we're going to batter them here, you know, we're going to be all over them. So it's always going to be a tight game, and I think both clubs are going to go into it thinking that they can win, and that makes for a great game. You know, if you've got one team that's going, you know, I think we'll probably get given a good show in here, then it's probably not the best. But especially with Gary Rowett and the new manager bounce, I've got a hatred for Gary Rowett because we never win against Gary Rowett's sides. You know, Millwall was our bogey team, and you know, Gary Rowett's always done well against North End. I think he's just sussed us out from whatever place he's place you stay. So having a new manager, especially in Gary Rowett, coming up against North End, especially when we're needing to pick up some points and the pressure's probably at a high for us as well, it's going to be a great game.
It's going to be really open, and actually, I'm looking forward to it for the return of Gary Rowett. It's a strange day, as we mentioned. Mentioned just before we started this, but not only are we seeing a football, but we're going to see a concert afterwards. The naming rights for the stadium are being announced, so it will formally be known as St Andrews at Knighthead Park. So it's going to be a superb occasion for that one, and hopefully, we can just see the best of both teams going into it. So, Pastor, we've talked there, a little bit about the past games. What's the one game, if there was one, that could really stand out for you as one that you remember between the two clubs? I know I've got one in particular, but what about for yourself?
I mean, the one that I'm thinking of right now, and that's probably when I was really young as well, it was the one where Ross Wallace scored a free kick at St Andrews. He stuck it into the top corner. I think it was like one of the last minutes. That stands out. Another one actually was when we were playing under the Alex Neil time. I think it was 3-1, where Daniel Johnson and Jordan Hugill as well. But there's been some fantastic games, even under COVID. Seeing Jude Bellingham play for England the other night, and albeit in COVID time, when we ended up winning 2-0 at North End, just flashing back to going, what a rise he's had from Birmingham to there. Because to be fair, in the COVID game, I can't remember him actually doing it. I think he actually missed an open net. To be fair to the lad, so there's plenty of games that spring out, and as I mentioned before, none of them have been really huge differences in quality of the teams. But for the number one probably would be the away game. I think it was 2006, where Ross Wallace ended up scoring for a free kick from about 30 yards. That's the one that springs out to me.
I mean, you've mentioned one of them already, of what I remember, which is, it is that goalkeeping howler, and the only way to describe it.
Yeah.
And it was Clifton Belt just, I'm going to welly it for welly's sake, and thinking nothing of it. And then us all going, has that really just happened? And that sparking the good result. But the other one, earlier years for myself, but was actually being there when we played you in the playoff semi-final. And Francis, the notorious I'm going to take my players off the pitch scenario. The penalties decision, which rest in peace, Trevor, but we'll never find out what actually happened on that occasion and whether the referee had actually agreed to take the penalties into a neutral end, which was what stemmed from that. But that was an eye-opener. It was great night, and it was a phenomenal atmosphere. I can always remember that, and travelling up and being on the coaches picking people up as we're going halfway up the motorway, because we've got fans from your neck of the woods that we're picking up, and getting to the ground, having a few bevies outside before we even came in was all awesome. And the game itself was really, really good.
Yeah.
Disappointing, obviously, to come away losing on penalties at the end of it, and to be in that, let's say, very strange situation where you've got your manager going, right, that's it, I've had enough. You made a promise, I'm off, and I'm taking my players with me. And I think actually that was probably the downturn of Birmingham in that game, because I think it actually did upset them and put them into a bit of a downward spiral before we'd even taken one of the penalties.
Taking the big penalties, yeah. I don't remember the game. I think I was too young, but I remember speaking to my uncle about it quite a lot. And obviously, I watched the highlights back on it, and I remember it was you could have put the game to bed as well. I think you took it round the goal. One of your lads took it round the goalkeeper, then missed the open net. We go down the other side, and what's his name? who scored. Rankin, and then Rankin puts it in the back of net. So, as we mentioned again, it's a game,
One of those tight games.
Tight games. But yeah, I mean, we've always had some fantastic games. Obviously, good for North End there, but obviously we didn't manage to make the Premier League, which is the all singing, all dancing land. Obviously, Birmingham have been there. We're still waiting on glory, but fingers crossed we both get there someday again.
Someday, definitely.
But...
So I mean, I've talked about games of old fair bit, but bit of a challenge for you. So I found this, and I've got to be honest, really hard. But I try and establish players that have represented both clubs across many seasons. And I'm not going to lie, the Preston one has really, really been tough. And in fact, I normally do managers, but we actually don't have a manager that's represented both clubs. So from players' perspective, I'm wondering if you could name 3 players.
Struggling with one here.
Have represented both clubs, and I will say 2 of them are pretty recent, and then the rest do go back over time, but they're names that you may recognise.
You're going to have to give me a hint. The 2 recent ones, did
both
the last play for Preston or last play for Birmingham?
Last played for Preston on both. Both played in midfield.
Oh.
And what can I say? One of them is a folk hero for Birmingham and will never be forgotten for something that he did. The other one, still plying his trade, but actually abroad.
Oh, my days.
What are you thinking about that? They're both actually, I should say, friends of the show as well. They've both actually been on Tilton tour. So, not that that'll help you, but...
Oh, nightmare. No.
Initials, DC and NK.
NK. Oh, you put me on the spot. Great. I can't think. NK. You'll say the names and I'll go, oh, what? No, mine's gone wrong.
So Darren Carter is the first one that will forever be in folklore history with Birmingham after scoring that penalty that took us to the Premier League, like you've mentioned. Mm-hmm. And NK midfielder, now playing his tried abroad, is Neil Kilkenny.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe I miss Kilkenny. Yeah.
And other players, there's not actually many at all. And like I say, these do go back now many, many years. But Andy Saville, from a striking perspective, going back a few more years, Mark Sale represented both clubs. Back a little bit further than Mark Sale, but not much further back, is Trevor Matthewson. And then back in the day, you mentioned about going with family members and stuff. They're bound to have seen this gentleman play, which is Frank Worthington.
Yeah, I've been told the name, but you've annoyed me with Kilkenny, actually. Because there's hardly any North End players that begin with K as well. I was just like, is it Kilkenny? Did he play for Birmingham? And it just went.
No, it really has been an interesting area to look at, in terms of that, because with the other interviews and things that I've done, we've always had a raft of players that we can
look at. Yeah,
this one has been incredibly hard. So I mean, we're going into the game on Easter Monday. Who should we look out for? So if we're going into that game, who should Birmingham fans be watching out for? Who should the Birmingham team be fearful of?
Well, I'll give you 3 players to watch, because I think obviously it's good to have a variety. They're all attacking players as well, and I'll give you the standout of them 3. So Obviously, Liam Miller, on loan from Basel, he's been fantastic this year. Coming in, I do severely hope we get him on a permanent deal. You know, if Birmingham fans don't know, we play 3-5-2. Obviously, with Liam Miller playing as a left wing back, so he does obviously help out with defensive duties. But he's much better on the front foot. He's fantastic in one-on-ones. And if any Birmingham fans have been watching around about Christmas period against Preston v Leeds on Sky, you'll have seen his wonder goal in the last minute where he's cut inside and bent it into the top corner. So he's one of those players where he can make something out of nothing.
Yep.
And they're the type of players that you need on the pitch. The other one is Emil Rees, the striker. He's come back from an ACL injury where he was out for 16 months, and he's been like a new signing. I know that's probably music to the ears of the club, so they don't have to sign a striker in the summer. But yeah, he's been fantastic. I think he scored like 5 in the past 7 or 8 games, which, coming back from a serious injury as an ACL, is fantastic. He actually, I think he's probably one of the only players that looks a better player after an ACL injury. You know, he's stronger. He's a lot more physical. He's a lot better with the ball at his feet. He can link play. He can score goals, and it's just like, where's this come from? So he's another one to look out. But the main one, and I'll always stick by this, is the new signing, number 10, Mads Frokke Jensen. He's obviously a number 10, so he plays just behind the strikers, and yeah, he's absolutely superb. He's a player that should never been playing for Preston in his life. He's definitely one that's going to be picked up by a Premier League team either this summer or next January. He's one of the best players I've seen at North End since Aidan McGeady. And you know, left foot, right foot, he can pick a pass. He's the most creative player in the team. Yeah, he's probably not that physical.
Yeah.
So I'd probably expect a couple of Birmingham players to go through the back of him, to be honest, just to set the tone. But his link-up play and, you know, his simplicity in what he does, it's just fantastic to see. As a North End fan, he's one of the best players I've seen since, you know, McGeady. So them 3 are the ones to look out for, but keep an eye on number 10.
And it's interesting that you mentioned about the setup of your team, because I mean, I can honestly say, you know, we're coming into this fresh. We don't know how Gary Rowett is going to set up our team.
No, of course.
The fact it's going to be very hard, I would hope, to get through us and to beat us. I think that is one thing he'll want to instill from the start off. As for the rest, we just don't know. It's a waiting game. But so in the last few, couple of minutes, really, what's your prediction for the game? How do you see it going? And what does your head say? What does your heart say?
Yeah, so I think it massively depends on Friday. To me, Craig, we're a big confident side. So if you got the fans on your side, you notoriously probably do well. We're playing Rotherham at home now. It would be so it would be so North End to get beat off the worst team in the league by a country mile in Rotherham. But it's a huge game, as I mentioned. Let's say that we do pick up 3 points. I'm not wanting to put it out there. If we do pick up 3 points there, I'd probably expect us to, hopefully go on and build more confidence and potentially coming away with a 2-1 win. Mm-hmm. That's my heart. My head is, is a Gary Rowett side. He knows how North End works. I don't know how he knows. He just knows. And we're never able to beat Birmingham at all. So my head's saying awfully a 2-1 Birmingham win where, it's 1-1 late on in the game and North End are going to push to obviously try and get the 3 points, and you end up sticking one in the back of the net on the counter. That's what my head's saying. Hopefully, it's my heart that wins. But it's a tough place to go, St Andrews, and I'm the worst gambling man ever. So if you ask me to play roulette, I'd say black and it'll go red. So I'll predict a North End loss and hope it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, also, I'm looking forward and I'm hoping that we see a new manager bounce. I think, his return to St Andrews, I've already mentioned his backroom staff with Paul Robinson. The guy was superb for us when he was captain. He knows how to fire up the players. He knows what it means to us as fans. So I'm going to say, my head and my heart are saying the same thing, which is, I'm hoping we come away with a 2-0 win to help us push ourselves away from the horrible position that we're in at that bottom end of the league and to help us push on then for the rest of the season. With what will be at the end of it, just 6 games to go. So it's been a tough slog, but I'm hoping that we can come away with that 2-0 win and help us push forward. But I also hope that next season that we're both in the same league and we're playing each other again, because like we said, we do enjoy those games. They're always tight and they're always a good watch.
I expect you to be there next season. I just can't see Birmingham going down. I think you've just got enough. You've got enough in the players, and you've obviously brought in a manager who's got experience of the championship level. I think you've just got enough, and I think you've got to look probably around you and think, there's definitely 3 worse teams than us this season. And I think that's the best way to look at the moment.
And that's where I want to be. So
there has to be 3 worse teams in Birmingham, because every time you come up and play us or we go down and play you, it's a fantastic game. And it may be one of those where we go down and go, how the heck are they near the relegation battle? And then you play us and you're thinking, how the heck are they near the playoffs? So it's one of those. I fully expect to be speaking to you next season, Craig, and I think probably if it does go Birmingham's way, we'll both be very looking forward to the end of the season, with us both staying in the Championship.
Indeed. As always, I end the show by saying, thank you very much again for joining us. I wish you all the best for the remainder of the season, but come Monday, I'll hope you're coming away with nothing. But thank you very much again, and I'll sign off by saying keep right on, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Craig. Cheers.